there has to be some experimentation. There has to be some people that sort of do that Hail Mary and try something that breaks the mold. Because again, what works now doesn't guarantee success for the future.
Hey, I'm Guy Powell, and welcome to the next episode of the Backstory on Marketing and AI. And of course, if you haven't already done so, please visit prorelevant.com and sign up for all of these episodes and podcasts. As you know, I am the author of the newly released book, The AI Marketing Machine, and you can find out more information on this at marketingmachine.prorelevant.com. That book has synthesized over 100 of these interviews, just like we were talking about taking a lot of data and distilling it down into something that's readable. Check it out. It's available now on Amazon, and it's available in paperback or on Kindle. Today I'm interviewing Brad Kugler, and he's with Direct Mail 2.0, and let me tell you a little bit more about him. He is the CEO of Direct Mail 2.0 and Who's Mailing What and DM20.ai. These are three platforms dedicated to helping marketers and commercial printers achieve better results from direct mail. He's a lifelong entrepreneur and innovator. Brad combines data, technology, and market intelligence to help businesses make smarter marketing decisions, improve campaign performance, and uncover new growth opportunities in an increasingly competitive marketplace. How true that is, and welcome, Brad. That is what just about every marketer is looking for.
Marketing's operating system has been replaced. Not upgraded, not improved. Replaced, completely and totally replaced. AI isn't a tool you bolt onto your existing marketing organization. It's a fundamental redesign of how marketing thinks, operates, and creates value. And most CMOs are already behind. The AI Marketing Machine is the field guide for marketing leaders who want to get ahead of that curve. Built on more than a decade of the marketing machine methodology and interviews with over 100 CMOs, this book shows you how to harness generative and analytic AI together, without losing the human edge that makes great marketing unforgettable. This isn't theory, this is the playbook. How to redesign your team, how to build AI into the foundation of how you work, how to prove ROI in the boardroom, and how to lead the intelligent marketing machine that wins in the marketplace. Marketing's future is already here. The question is whether you're building it or watching someone else do it. The AI Marketing Machine, available now.
Thank you, Guy. Gosh, I couldn't have said that better myself, but that is what we do. We kind of position ourselves as the performance stack for direct mail. And I have an interesting story. I can tell you how I got to this point. And being an older gentleman later in my career, AI is just not for the younger generation, as I can show.
Yeah, yeah. Well, tell us, how did you get started in all this? And especially not just marketing, but so what is your backstory on marketing and now AI?
So I started in a family business almost 30 years ago, actually more than that, 35 years ago. It was a family business where we did wholesale distribution of VHS. All right. As the late 90s came around, I wanted to bring this business online. And we were one of the first to sort of jump on the bandwagon of eBay auctions and Amazon auctions, which later turned into Amazon Marketplace. And we started selling DVDs as they evolved, as well as video games and CDs. And I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Jeff Bezos a couple of times, being one of the top DVD sellers on Amazon for a while. But the writing was on the wall. Okay. Everybody saw the onslaught of Apple and Netflix and Amazon and digitization of streaming media. Not like we didn't see this coming. We knew it was coming for a dozen years. It was just a matter of when. And as we approached 2012, 2013, our revenue and distribution had peaked. And at that point, we were eroding at 30% a year. So the future was here. And myself, having been a college dropout and never did anything really but this family business. And I took a short job after I dropped out of college as a marketing company for 6 months, which we won't even discuss. But I said, I got to retrain myself. I have been in a disrupted market. I have no college degree. and I'm going to be hitting the job market with two kids in college and another on the way at almost 50 years old. I was concerned. I was concerned. So what I do, I started reading all of the MBA books that colleges were offering. I think I read 27 books in the period of like 12 months. I should say listen to them. I was an audiobook guy. And I learned a couple of things on the way down. As my revenue from selling DVDs and CDs on e-commerce was eroding at 30% a year, I learned a lot more managing cash flow and business on the way down than on the way up. When everybody's buying, it's easy. I'll be honest with you. It's when they stop buying that gets difficult. So I said, what am I going to do after I retrain myself? I need a business with recurring revenue. I need a business that is a disruptor, not being disrupted. And I started looking. I started involving myself with technology, and I came across a family, a friend, bless her, Joy Rockwell from Postcard Mania, who had a commercial printing and marketing company. And she had watched my, I guess you could say, my trials and tribulations of unwinding a 27-year-old business. I was able to navigate that into the grave without any major lawsuits or personal bankruptcies. And she admired my tenacity in navigating that exit when there was nowhere to exit to. I actually started a couple other little businesses that were kind of coming along. And she said, hey, we've got this technology that is a disruptor for direct mail. It improves the old school direct mail. And I said, tell me about it. We made a deal. I was charged with spinning off this infantile technology into its own business, getting it up to its going concern. It was three technical things that were done to direct mail to make it more trackable. This is mail tracking like a package. We did some Google retargeting, as well as telephonic tracking with call tracking numbers. So we built this into its own platform, and we launched it and sold it to other commercial printers. It was growing quite well. We were getting a name in the industry. We went from 3 features to 15 features. We went from 3 staff to 28 staff, and I ended up, this is probably 2 years ago, acquired a company called Who's Mailing What, which was the largest database of mailed pieces, and it was cataloged and indexed, and it was like a competitive intelligence tool for people mailing. And then I said, wow, let's build something with AI that takes this data with our campaign data and can predict outcomes for direct mail campaigns. Nobody's ever done this. Nobody had the database we did. And that's what I've been working feverishly on the last 16 or 18 months. So that is the accelerated story of how we got here.
Yeah, that is fascinating. I'd never heard of that. Who's mailing what? So that'll tell you all the political folks that are mailing me stacks and
Yeah.
stacks and stacks of those postcards.
Yeah, it's a database of about 500,000 different direct mail campaigns from 50,000 advertisers. And it's all indexed and OCR'd. And, you know, like American Express will send 2 or 3 different campaigns for years, for 10 years. We track them all. We track industry
Hmm.
fluctuations. I mean, targeting. So we have a lot of data. There is no bigger database of direct mail. And if I'm building something with AI on direct mail marketing, I needed to own this, and I was able to pick it up for a reasonable price. And it came with customers, and it was profitable, and it was cash flowing. So I thought, no brainer.
Wow. Well, I tell you, it's funny. My business is about analytics and primarily on the analytic AI side, although now getting more into the generative and getting good data for any and all of your marketing campaigns is critical. And then getting competitive data is even more important because you want to know what they're doing. So I will definitely be looking you up in a little bit when we get off here. So, it's interesting. You talk about the shift in the industry from DVDs and VHS, I guess, down to streaming and Netflix and going from into Blockbuster, and I can't remember those red, whatever those red things were, the kiosks that had the DVDs in there.
Redbox is what they were called. They were
Redbox.
outside of Kmart's and all over the place. That was one of
Yeah.
our customers, actually.
Oh, no
You know?
kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now, and that was a huge technological shift. So now, in a similar way, you've got AI as the shift. So, the good news is that I think we're all trying to jump on that wave, and hopefully, we're going to ride that wave for the next handful of years and decades as this new technology comes on. And what do you see it kind of replacing as it takes hold?
I listen, I believe this AI revolution will dwarf the internet explosion of the late 1990s and the early 2000s. This is orders of magnitude in terms of ease of use and technology explosion. This is this will make the internet shift look like a Sunday change in weather. Okay. And I think people fall into three categories with regard to this. They either get it in terms of the order of magnitude of the change coming, and they prepare and change the outlook on their business and life and everything. Then the middle group, which is the largest, which is the casual user who uses chat, maybe updates some spreadsheets with it, and asks it questions that it needs an answer to. And then you have a smaller set of the population who is a naysayer. They're afraid of it. They either think it's a fad, or they're rejecting the usage or the proliferation of it. I think the safest place to be is at the front end, where you anticipate the groundbreaking change of technology that's coming towards us. And that's where I like to be, or at least I think I am. So it will change every aspect of humanity within the next 10 years. Uh, I know this for a fact. I mean, if you spend any time with it, you probably believe that too. If you're a casual user, you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. That got me some interesting sports facts or whatever. It's kind of like the replacement for the old search engines, but that's just scratching the surface. I can go on and on all day
Yeah,
about this,
yeah.
but you know, medical, legal, marketing, anything that requires huge and quick ingestion of data to come out with a very relevant and sequitur response, this is an absolute game changer. 100x leap in order of magnitude of change.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And for the knowledge workers, so just those industries you're talking about, marketing, medical, and legal, and I'm sure there's others, but the ability to get to an answer at least at a first stage within seconds, as opposed to hours thumbing through books and breathing in the dust and whatever. I mean, it's hard to believe that when I was growing up, you'd have to go to a library and spend an hour going through the cards to find a book, get it on the shelf, read the book or whatever, and then try and
I
get
remember that
one sentence is really all you want. And then now you just go in and there it is within
within
seconds and
seconds.
minutes.
It's actually unbelievable. And maybe it's more impactful for people like you or I. When we were younger, we went to the library and flipped through the card catalog. There wasn't even a computer in a library, or there was one that was sort of a showpiece of, to tinker around with, I mean, I personally, I don't use old fashioned Google search anymore. I'm probably you don't, if at all, either. Um, I don't call a lawyer to review a contract or spit me out an NDA. I go to my chat or Claude or whatever. Why spend the $300 to have them
Yeah.
review a one-page? I won't even do it. There's no point.
Yep.
And I've asked lawyers, has this impacted your business? And one of them, who's a good friend of mine, says it has, but it's helped our productivity because we don't have people asking us as much for those things anymore. We can concentrate on the more difficult and complex questions. So it will change every industry. Do I believe that everyone or 80% of us will be out of a job within 3 to 5 years? No, it's going to be a shift like anything
Right.
else. There will be some positions that don't exist, but there'll be new ones created that will replace most of them. So,
Yep, absolutely. Well, anyway, let's go back a little bit.
yeah.
So it sounds like you were recently on a USPS webinar, And you were talking about how AI is shifting traditional campaign marketing and really getting now into true performance marketing. Tell us what that shift was about and why and what's going on there and how it's going to help out marketers.
You know, getting back to the amount of data, so I have conducted 80,000 direct mail campaigns, 2.1 billion pieces of mail that have actually touched every one of the 140 million households or residential addresses in the United States. So you can't even put that into a spreadsheet and work it with any type of efficiency. But with AI, you can. I can put all the data points for every one of those 2.2 billion pieces into a what it might call an MCP server. And it can instantly pull back what is working and what isn't by geography, by vertical, by time of year, and give you an analysis of a campaign that really, without a room full of computers and people, was just never possible before. You know, maybe you can look at charts and compare 4 or 5 different campaigns, but could you compare 80,000 in seconds? Never, never. And that's really the magic here because marketing, I believe, has so many variables. You have the targeted audience, you have the geography, you have the timing, you have the quantity, you have the creative, which could have 100 variables in it itself. So when every time you increase the number of variables in a question, that math gets more and more complex. We've all heard of the three-body problem with gravitatic planets and objects. Now, imagine having millions of data points and trying to come up with some sort of logical, true data-tested solution to why a mail piece worked or why it didn't. Nobody can just look at it and say why it worked or why it didn't. But the more data you add to it, with more certainty, you can predict why that did work and could be replicated again. Everyone's had a failure with marketing. I'm not saying this technology will eliminate marketing failures, but I think it will improve the chances of marketing success because the number of data points and variables that can be combined and compared at one time.
Well, and I think to your point, nothing will ever get rid of errors, but most likely the losses or the lack of success on the errors will get smaller, but the
Yes.
amplification of the successes will get larger. And so that overall is just going to lead to some incredible improvements in marketing.
Yeah, and I'm sure we've heard the horror stories where people dumped huge amounts of money and effort into a campaign and were completely underwhelmed by the results. I mean, I don't know, I haven't met one person that hasn't had a and the issue is that is you have people that get very gun shy after something like that. It could be financially crippling for a while. So at the very least, I think it will bring up some of the troughs of some of those catastrophic marketing mistakes, you know? And as tastes change, people are fickle. People get tired of a certain message after a while. Just because something worked once doesn't mean it will work in perpetuity. So what happens is with the algorithms we're working with is we weight heavier the more recent successes than ones months or years ago. There is something called marketing fatigue. I believe it. And one day I will prove it, I hope, with our data set. And I will predict marketing fatigue with some accuracy. But it's something that I've alluded to a lot of times. And why didn't this work after it's been working for years? Marketing fatigue, you know? So,
Yeah. Absolutely. No question that there's marketing fatigue. And I mean, whether it's a TV commercial or whatever, and that's why the creatives keep changing. And even, that's where we talk about diminishing returns all the time. And that is basically, to a large extent, fatigue. And so, absolutely.
but on the other side of the coin, we also have heard for years, and again, I'd love to see AI prove this statistic, that it takes 8 to 12 contacts or touches to actually reside in memory or have recognition. So knowing that, you need to get to that recognition period as quick as possible, but ensure you don't exceed it so much to get into the marketing fatigue zone. So getting that sweet spot is
Yep.
something I believe AI can absolutely help, especially with something expensive like TV ads or direct mail, email, digital campaigns. Listen, they're cheaper per impression, of course. But when you get to direct mail or you get to television or streaming, well, those number of impressions get very expensive, especially if you want to reach that threshold of 8 to 12. You're going to invest a lot of money, a ton of money if it's TV or printed, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, but I think there's two things though that you're talking about. One is that the I think, has kind of unlocked the realization that data is valuable. And so then you're collecting and building out your data sets, and then the AI is then responding and saying, well, I don't care how big your data sets are, I'm going to be able to analyze that. And so then as those data sets get bigger and bigger, the AI gets smarter and smarter. And then at
Yes.
some point, which sounds like you're very close, is to where you've got so much data that now you can start to ask really, really questions that have been plaguing marketing for years and years.
100% I agree. And then I start going in the other sense. So you get to this marketing singularity where the AI gets so good, it knows what works and what doesn't. Now, that requires a reset because if everybody is at that singularity where they know how to do it, well, now you even have to retrain the models again because if everybody's at that level of marketing perfection or the zenith of conversion, well, that's going to move the goalposts again because now it's just noise, but at a higher level. So there has to be some experimentation. There has to be some people that sort of do that Hail Mary and try something that breaks the mold. Because again, what works now doesn't guarantee success for the future.
Yeah, and I think you're so right. You have to, and I think that's a challenge too, is you kind of get into this mold where, hey, it's working, and then to use your term, marketing fatigue kind of sets in, and somebody that's looking at it says, well, I don't want to just do the same old. I have to break that mold and come up with something that doesn't get predicted or whatever by the AI. It's kind of breaks the AI, and then the AI responds and says, "Yep, that is a really good thing, and that's going to succeed, way beyond what everything else is doing."
And the AI at first is probably going to tell you that doesn't work because there's no past successes with this new idea. So at some point, we're going to break the AI and have to retrain it because someone's going to try something new. AI is going to say, no, this isn't going to work. And it's going to require the human's gut instinct to go with it anyway and start to retrain the AI. So it needs us as much as
Yeah,
we need it, you know,
yeah,
because someone's got to go out on a limb and try something else. And
yeah,
and we're not just talking in creative, but another big thing besides timing and frequency is targeting. Okay. So you have an ideal client profile of who the AI says this is who is your customer. This is who is your customer based on past. Well, what happens when you've saturated that customer market with the right message? You need to break outside of that ICP and now find a new batch of customers, which again, at first the AI is going to tell you, don't do it. But someone's going to have to go against it to retrain the model, you know?
right. Absolutely. How true, how true. All right, so let me ask, you have built an AI product, and it's very different than what's been out there before. So tell me some of the technical challenges and
Sure.
business and mindset challenges that you faced when you were bringing this now to market.
So I am not an engineer, although I know enough about because I've run, engineers for years. I know that I am not an AI engineer. So, we started this project, I'm going to say first conceptually about 24 months ago and got serious about 18 months ago. And we hired a set of AI engineers to build models around our direct mail data. As I said, we acquired a large database. We have 8 years worth of campaign success data. And when I say campaign success, not the money that it generated, but the engagements with the campaign. And I want to clarify this because if you base your models and I may sound like I'm justifying the fact that I haven't based it on ROI, but I based it on engagement. If you're a realtor selling multi-million dollar homes, that ROI is going to be off the charts, and you're going to have to normalize that against other percentages of
Yeah.
AI. They're
Yeah.
selling pizzas, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we used engagement. Now, what is engagement? Engagement being the success or not of the piece for two reasons. Engagement means that the marketing piece caused them to take some action, to go in, to make a phone call, go to a website, scan a QR code, click on an email. That's engagement. Now, does that mean they bought? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe the fault lied with the salespeople that ruined the sale. Maybe there was something past the engagement point that turned them off from the sale. So I feel that engagement is directly correlated to the marketing actions. What happens after you get the lead or you have the conversion and it's turned over to sales or they go into a brick and mortar? Now you're adding another variable that the marketing is not in control of. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
All right. So we took 157 verticals and call them buckets. And we took all of the mail with all of those results and we dropped them into verticals: household services, finance, auto, nonprofit, education, those type of things. Then we normalized in each one of those verticals what the engagement rate was for those verticals. And I say engagement rate, on average, it was 1.5 to 4%. That means of all the people targeted, about 4% might have engaged, down to 1.5. So then we looked at if that's the average engagement rate for that vertical, and it varied. I can tell you that finance and nonprofits tended to have higher engagement rates than, say, restaurants. Okay. And it was interesting as we drilled down into these industries. Um, then what we did is we looked at the ones that were outliers, the ones that lived above that median. All right. And what was different about those campaigns? What was different in the creative? What was different in the targeting in terms of geography, the timing, and the quantity of the mailing? Okay. So we look at the upper bands, the ones that outperformed. So then we saw, was there any sort of correlation? The ones that outperformed, what did they do differently that caused them to outperform, at least from the data we had? So we started normalizing that data and putting it into a usable form. So that gave us our benchmarks, our highs, our lows, et cetera. And again, the same for the ones that didn't perform well. What was missing? What did they fail on? And on the creative itself, we were looking at font size, image to text ratio, size of postcard. Was it a mailer? Was it an envelope? Was it a letter? What was the type of mailing? How was it mailed? First class, saturation mailings. So we looked at all these things. We looked at color combinations, warm, cold. We looked at the presence and size and location of phone numbers, URLs, QR codes, time of year. We broke everything down into months. So we really broke these things down to understand, what was lifting and what wasn't lifting. So we have all this data normalized. Then what we do is we ask the user, they upload their creative front and back, two images for creative. Then we ask them 8 questions, when are you mailing? How many pieces are you mailing? Type of mailing, of course, the vertical, et cetera. And then it basically churned and it said, this is where we predict your piece will be as compared to the benchmarks, higher or lower.
Hmm.
And then we put out the product like that. And I'll be honest, it was very vague and very boring. Okay. These were math geeks that made this thing. We tried to add some spunk to it and people were just like, eh. Even though the math was solid, it didn't have that ChatGPT personal feel.
Yep.
So we thought, all right, and then people kept saying, well, why don't I just send my postcard to ChatGPT? And what do I need you for? Well, you don't have our database. You don't have our data. You don't have our models. Oh, okay. Well, this data is boring and I don't believe it anyway. So then what we did is we said, let's connect to the top 3 frontier models, Chat, Gemini, and Claude. We'll play 2 of them against each other, Chat and Gemini. And then we'll use Claude to sort of examine the deltas between the two and output a final report that sort of normalizes the report and makes it digestible to the user. So we've got our own model. We use Chat, Gemini, and Claude, and that's how we output the recommendations report. It's very in depth, it's 2 or 3 pages. And then we also pull in things like, here's your competitors from our Who's Mailing What database. Oh, these are the mailings that were within 25 miles of yours in the same category. So we're showing them the competitors on the fly. We're also building an ideal client profile based on the people who actually responded. So we can say these are the types of people that have been known to engage with this. This should be who you're targeting. We haven't rolled this out yet, but it's coming. We're rolling out a feature to where we are going to use Higgs field. It's a wrapper around Nano Banana, which will actually implement the changes to the postcard or the mailer based on the recommendations. Camera ready artwork. They just go to their printer and do it. So we're sort of the end-to-end solution. People rave about it. And I'll tell you, well, what's the problem? Why aren't I a billionaire yet? Well, it's a product that people don't know they need. And,
Yeah.
and they're not used to paying. It starts at $100. You're allowed to retest one time. You can sign up for a recurring revenue model and get it down by 70% if you want. But, it's kind of like
Yeah.
showing people something that they don't know that they need. And they're like, this is cool. Well, I don't really want to pay $100. I mean, obviously some do, but that's the resistance. It's the
Yeah.
unfamiliarity with paying for AI. I can go on chat for free.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that I
Yeah,
hope
but
that
it's
that
that
explains
difference.
it, and
No, no, that
that wasn't
does.
too
Yeah.
long-winded.
And that, that's the marketing of what you've done. And I really appreciate the the feedback that you had kind of an engineered solution as opposed to a so to speak, a pretty solution. And
Yes.
I also like what you did is you went out to, and combined all three, the Gemini, the Claude, and the Chat GPT to get a. So how did you average the three then? What did you use to average the three?
Basically, we sent it to two, Chat and Gemini, had them each give they both reviewed the mathematics.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
we send them the piece, we send them the raw engineering data, the actual feed of the math, and then we send our recommendations. We sent the same thing to both. So they obviously came out with slightly different. I mean, they agree in most of the places, but some
right,
places they
right,
don't. So
right.
then we pushed it to Claude to do the reconciliation.
Yeah,
Obviously with package prompts that tell it to normalize, dump the outliers,
yep,
dump the make sure there's no hallucinations, so that it
yep,
gives a comprehensive, logical report without anything that comes out of left field.
yeah,
That was
yeah,
why we
yeah,
decided to go with 3 different models. So again, the value to the user is we're going to do all that work. The engineered model, the leading edge LLMs playing them against each other, someone's not going to do that. Plus, we give them the competitive intelligence from our Who's Mailing What database. There's nobody in the world that's going to be able to do that. And Chat and Gemini, none of these guys have this access to this data. So you
yeah.
know, and the
Well, and
biggest
that's your
objection
definitely
is,
your
what do I need
value
you?
add.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely your value add, and being a data guy, having the data is everything. It's. I mean, okay, maybe there's 20% is the algorithm, but 80% is the data, and having good data is just so much. So, all right, so let's say you've got this capability for direct mail, and then I have it for email, and somebody else will have it for programmatic. And I mean, all of that stuff is coming. Paid search, the Google algorithms are just incredible as to what they can do. And I've just seen something the other day with one of our clients. They had about a 40 to 1 improvement using the Google AI on their, just to improve their paid search. And so, what do you see then as the role of the marketer in the next 5 years?
Well, unless they're going to build these tools themselves, I would keep my ear to the rail on all of these tools that uses AI to sort of crunch these large numbers and take risk out of marketing. You know, whether it's your targeting, it's your creative, your timing, your geography, use these tools or make them yourself. Because, and I'll be honest, going forward, any type of application or platform you build can probably be duplicated in 1/100th of the time it would have taken 3, 4 years ago. 1/100th of the time. So the
Yeah.
value is not in the platform or the code, it's in the data. Okay.
Yeah.
The days of creating a unique application, I believe that industry is at risk completely. You know, we've all
Yeah.
heard about the SaaS apocalypse. Anything you build or anyone else's build can be duplicated 1/100th at a time. So what is the uniqueness, or what does a company have? It's data.
Yeah.
Okay. That data is unique to that company. If you own that data and don't leak it to one of the LLMs, that is your secret sauce, because your output, the thing that changes your raw data to your output, can be duplicated in days or weeks.
Yeah. Well, um, I think there's two components to that differentiation. I certainly the data is one, no question about it. And I agree with you that the application can be once somebody sees it, they're going to say, "Wow, this is really good," and then just duplicate it. Give it to somebody in Pakistan or in China, and it'll be
Just give
duplicated.
it the Claude code and say,
Just
tell me.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. But the other side is though is the market presence. So
you're right. I
and
take that back. If you have a giant market presence like Salesforce can be duplicated now. But when
yeah,
you have
and it
millions
is
of
duplicated.
customers,
Yeah. And the
you,
switching cost in Salesforce's case, the switching costs are just too high.
yeah,
But in anything, that market presence, so then it's all about how do you get share as fast as possible once you've got this app that has the data, because once you've done that and you're on a growth path, the competition is going to have a very hard time in trying to catch up
you're
to you.
absolutely right. That is the other variable. If you've established a beachhead and you have millions of customers or millions and millions of dollars of
Yeah,
revenue coming
yeah.
in, that's a freight train that's on a downhill slope. Good luck catching them, you know?
Well, and I think, Adobe, that's one example that I love is they gave away the PDF generator for years and they still give it away.
Yeah.
And yet you look at the size of the company and how they were able to turn a free product into something that is just absolutely enormous and can't be beat. Everybody uses the PDF, whatever that format is, they all use that file format.
Yep.
And now Adobe, they're constantly trying to get you to upgrade and do this and do that. And then, of course, they've added in a whole bunch of other features, which are also incredibly valuable. But they were able to do that by just basically flooding the market for free with their capability, getting market share that at that point couldn't be beat.
Yep. Now, I mean, that's a very valid point. But again, getting to that market share, I mean, if you're a startup and everybody on your competitory starting line is a startup, well, you're all at the same place. But if you're going to go after an Adobe or a Salesforce or a Microsoft, even though almost any one of their products can be duplicated pretty quickly, good luck with that. They're going to
Yeah,
outmarket you. They have decades ahead of you in terms
yeah,
of customer retention and customer acquisition working methodology. That's going to be a tall order to beat. They have to make some major mistakes, which they
yeah,
probably won't
yeah.
make.
Well, and that's a different issue then, because once you've got, let's say, the market leader and a couple of challengers, then it is all about the how you run the business, kind of,
Yes.
and add those little differentiators that win over in this niche and that segment and this, and then they kind of all get ahead or not. So you look at Salesforce. Salesforce is a great example. They own enterprise, and it's almost impossible, I think, for Microsoft Dynamics or HubSpot to take over. But HubSpot owns then the small business,
Right.
and so it's fascinating just to watch. So I really love your example of using Salesforce.
Yeah. Yeah. And Salesforce has done really well. Uh, Benioff is no dummy. I mean, he's been investing in AI. He's got a great AI application layer that sits in between the application and the user now. He is not letting moss grow under his feet
Yeah,
at all
yeah,
on this.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'd love to keep going, but we're going to have to break. But I do have one last question for you, and
Sure.
that is, what advice would you give an up-and-coming new marketer that's trying to get into the market and seeing themselves competing against AI?
I would make myself familiar with as many AI tools as possible. I'll tell you why. If I was starting in marketing right now, there's a lot of resistance and a lot of analysis paralysis with all the tools coming on the market. If you take the time and get yourself briefed on the latest tools and stay on that cutting edge, you can bring these tools to companies that are not ready or don't have the resources or bandwidth to start using them themselves, and then you are the value added. You employ these tools, you help a marketing agency or a marketer implement these tools, and then you arbitrage the spread between what it costs to use the tools and the value for you adding that service to their business. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I think you're right. And because even though the company is probably making stabs at different AI pieces, and they may have an AI expert somewhere. But if your skills in AI are able to not only beat out the skills of your competitors as being about to be hired, and or you can really deliver value to the rest of the team, then that's, I think, what employees are really ready to pay for.
Absolutely. There's just people that cannot dedicate the time. They're not ready to learn something new. It's too overwhelming. You can be that savior for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Brad, really, thank you so much. This has been fantastic, and it's a fantastic story that you've got, and I love the direct mail and what you're doing with a marketing channel that has kind of been forgotten given all of the internet stuff, and what you're doing really brings it back to life. I think that's the fun part about marketing, is that there's always really cool things going on. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
what's happening otherwise.
Direct mail is not dead. It is now attributable like any other digital marketing technology. So it deserves another look. It gets great ROI if used for the right thing.
Yep.
And I'm a believer in it.
Oh, me too. Absolutely. So, where can folks learn more about you and your company?
I think the easiest thing to do is just go to dm20.com. All of our platforms and information is listed. I can be found on there. dm20.com. We're easy to find. Four-letter domain.
Fantastic. dm20.com. Well, Brad, thank you so much. And for the audience, please stay tuned for many other videos in this series of the backstory on marketing and AI. And definitely check out my book, The AI Marketing Machine. It's easy to download, or just pick it up as a paperback right from Amazon. Brad, again, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
And thank you, Guy. Very inspiring conversation. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.